Thank you very much, Comrade Mahlengi. Passion is always necessary and always needed if you want to be able to deliver on what you are. And I'm speaking from experience, and I share these experiences with the young people all the time. You know, I wanted to get back to the issue of zero rated, because I did answer the question, but maybe because it came back again, we must have an appreciation that staple foods like bread, veggies, rice, milk, there is a whole list of the basic foods that are zero rated in South Africa. And those are your brown bread, maize meal, samp, mealy rice, dried beans, lentils, pilchards, dairy powder, vegetables, fruit vegetables, vegetable oil. In fact, you would find that when we do food parcels, where we need to do food parcels, particularly where people have been affected either by disasters and we have to then step up and assist, that's what you would find in our food parcel. I also want to respond to, I hope I understood you well, Norman, because let me, going back to the VAT exemptions, those are consistent discussions in the African National Congress, because you cannot on the one hand be talking about supporting the most vulnerable and trying to make it easy for them, while at the same time appreciating that the economy is not doing very well and it's slowly starting to rise. And I'm hoping that with all the plans that the rest of the committees will speak about will show a bit of a sign of a growth in as far as the economy is concerned. So we will consistently, and particularly from those departments that deal with the most vulnerable. So you'll have really engagements, tough engagements within the African National Congress. I can tell you that even the issue of the 350, don't think that it's just automatic. Lindiwe Zulu will go there, will come to the STC and have a conversation and think that's going to be easy. We are asked to be very conscious of the public purse. We are always asked to be very conscious of what is possible and what is not possible. But because we've been given the mandate, and the African National Congress being given the mandate by the people of South Africa who vote the African National Congress into power, we have to have these dynamic engagements. And one thing we do not want to lose, particularly from this cluster, in as far as addressing and responding to the needs of our people, is to continue engaging in as far as VAT exemption, where is it possible and where is it not possible. But right now, you can Google the list of things, of products that are VAT exempted in South Africa. Now, Norman, the growing criticism and concerns by the middle class, if I understood you very well, you'll correct me, related to the 350. I can tell you that many of South Africans who are unemployed, and I must make this statement, that 350 can never be an amount that is catering for the needs of people who are unemployed. Let us start there. And we must also go back to the historical background of why we came up with the 350 as was announced by the president. It was simply because COVID-19 made it impossible for the majority of South Africans, many of whom wake up in the morning and go and hustle on the street one way or the other. You find people that do garden, you find people that are domestic workers, you find people that are selling products out on the streets in order to sustain themselves and sustain their livelihoods. There was a complete shutdown. And those people could not get any money from anywhere, while some people continued to receive their salaries at the end of the day, whether they were at home or not at home, they continued to receive their salaries. So the 350 was just an amount that was supposed to assist and hold people at that short period of time However, let me clarify this, that when the first applications happened, it reflected exactly the number which is normally given to us by Stats SA when they give us data about how many people are unemployed in South Africa. So the start of the SRD was supposed to be only for those who had lost their jobs during COVID-19. However, when the department, as well as government in general, was looking at the numbers of the people who applied versus those who had lost their jobs, and doing an analysis of how do we cushion our people, we felt, let us not even deal with the issue of those who had lost their jobs. Let us deal with South Africans who are completely and utterly unemployed, many of whom actually had lost hope that they can be able to go out and look for jobs post COVID-19. It was for this reason that then government decided, let us not only focus on those who lost their jobs, let us focus on everybody that doesn't have a job so that they can be able to get the 350, little as it is, but let us give them the 350. And you can see that we have consistently extended the 350 despite the fact that COVID-19, supposedly COVID-19 ended. But we are looking now from a comprehensive social security point of view to say, COVID-19 taught us some lessons. We introduced 350. We covered more than the people who had lost their jobs. We covered even those that never had jobs. Hence the continuation of the 350, and it extended even until 2025. And so when you talk about the middle class being concerned about the 350, I don't exactly understand how do you connect the two, because the 350 was specifically to respond to COVID-19, but now it is responding to unemployment. And the extension thereof and the increase thereof, if the increase happens, because as a Department of Social Development, we are saying, government, you are cushioning the unemployed, but there is an issue of how much can the 350 procure, how much can people get out of the 350, and what else can government do, considering, of course, the fact that the budget is not very good. But we believe that the government of the African National Congress has a capacity and a capability of being creative and ensuring that this 350 is increased and it supports our people more, because we worry about what it can procure. One of the things I can tell you is that we realized as a Department of Social Development, not only ourselves, even the research that was done by people, was that families who have 2 or 3 people maybe in the family who are not employed, they put the 350 together. And they say, what do we need most? And then they go and procure what they need most. But lastly, with regard to the comprehensive social reforms, I think it's important for us not to narrow this whole issue of comprehensive social security, because comprehensive social security is defined even by the international organization, it's defined even by the ILO as a system that needs to be used by any given country to cushion and protect its people across the board, not just the vulnerable. And I indicated in my presentation that we've gone to very far, to a point that the Green Paper, which has been meandering along the way, the Green Paper has finally been approved by Cabinet to be published so that it can get the public comments. And I'm sure the public comments will speak broadly to ensuring universal access to social security. And when we speak about universal access, we are talking from those who have, those who don't have, and those who are finding themselves below the poverty line. We have to be able to ensure that as a nation and as a country, our social assistance programs are properly integrated so that they are not in piecemeal. They must be brought under one roof so that we can also be able to see where the weaknesses are and where are we even losing money in as far as that is concerned. And so I think social security, I can also say, is an economic stabilizer, especially during crises. We've had crisis of COVID-19. We don't know what other crises are going to come through. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a question, I think, by Naledi about increasing public sector wages in line with inflation. The reality is that we don't take a decision upfront before outside any form of bargaining processes. So we have to wait for the normal bargaining process to have the parties involved to decide or to discuss on their proposals. And then, of course, you got the mandate from government that will ultimately help to close the gap. Sometimes there's agreement. Sometimes, as you know, you would be the first to know if there was no agreement, as you know what normally happens. So whilst we note the fact that there would be a need to consider issues of inflation, there's obviously another need to balance the public purse with the rest of the developmental needs of the society, and therefore government has to create that kind of balance. So we cannot take a decision up front to say this is what we're going to do, but we have to wait for that process. It's a give and take process, and the fact that it still endures means that it does work for both parties. So I think let's take it that there are no predetermined ideas about it. We actually have to wait for the process. The junior raised a question about fuel levy. Actually, the question is whether we do discuss it in the ANC, and the issue is yes. We discuss it, not just the issue of fuel levy, but also we discuss the whole issue of the cost of living and various contributors to that, and this every now and again becomes a debate. As my comrade is saying, it does become a very heated debate because the question is what else can be done to shield society from the rising cost, particularly driven by the fuel levy. But as we know, that is a very complex formula, this one of the fuel levy, with Central Energy Fund also having a major role to play, and the decisions from the Treasury, because it's part of the tax packages that have to be taken into account to raise revenue. So it doesn't become an issue that you can only deal with in a political meeting, but we have to bring in the factors that are important to be considered as the decision makers have to take the decision. But the reason that it was taken at the level of Central Energy Fund, it was mainly because the idea of avoiding unnecessary manipulation is a very sensitive subject. So the ANC does discuss that, but we don't really take a decision on the matter. The decision has to be taken by the relevant authorities. You must have obviously reported, I see one of the media actually was reporting that in the annual budget speech on Wednesday, Kotongwana said government was mindful of the already high cost of living and the impact of fuel prices on food, and therefore in this regard we're proposing no increase in the general levy for 2024-25. So it does become a factor, and in this case it did become part of the minister's speech. The other issue that has been raised has been dealt with quite adequately in relation to the threat of the middle class being rebellious on issues of social security. I think one of the things that's very important amongst South Africans is that of social solidarity, wherein there's a need to always consider those who are worse off and affected by poverty, inequality, unemployment, and therefore as South Africans we have to find a way of assisting each other to make sure that the government can provide a mechanism for the rest of the others to cope. So that, I think, should be our approach as we deal with the issue of the SRD and other social security issues. But we are again mindful of the fact that these are interventions in crisis. Even social security, the old age pension is because you can't do anything. You have to actually deal with supporting someone who has worked for most of their lives and are no longer able to support themselves. When those who are living with disabilities and the children who are coming from destitute families, all of these are considerations that come into being. But I did mention here that we actually are focusing on the creation of a sustainable, independent livelihood. And that's why then we're saying that there are a number of financial reforms and economic transformation policy approaches to promote skills development, to promote financial inclusion, to promote access to finance for SMMEs and cooperatives, so that not only do we look for job creation from the big companies, but we also want the small entrepreneurs to also create their own jobs at their level. So that's a way. I think it's going to take us many years to get to the right spot, but where we are quite clear that the social grants are a crisis intervention. The sustainability has to come from creating entrepreneurship, creating jobs, and also involving everyone to be productive in actually supporting the economy. So that is the approach that we're taking now. There would be criticism, really, that would be a matter of debate, because we haven't said there shall never be any way of creating sustainable livelihood. We are saying that process has to be followed, but because it's going to be a process that's evolving over a period, it's important. You would know that, of course, many years ago, there was actually a law that prevented African people from doing business. It was a law you'd be charged if you're involved in business. And slowly, the trading craft and skills actually was eroded in some of the communities. You have to build it up, you have to support it with market, technical training, and a whole lot of other supporting measures, with government also leveraging on its procurement capacity to deal with supporting in this sector. So that would be our issue. The last point relates to the disruption in Ekurhuleni. As the ANC, we condemn the disruption. We actually believe that the parties have to take responsibility for a harmonious management of internal tensions and differences of opinion in any municipality. That we have gone past the era of political intolerance, where violence is seen as a means of resolving issues. And on that basis, therefore, we do believe that the parties involved need to actually be brought together, so that they must, in the next session, not only make amends of what that disruption, but also make sure that in future there's a harmonious management of different views, because this is a democracy. We have come from that history. Many years ago, when we were involved in the resolution of tensions, in particular in KwaZulu-Natal, one of the issues that were important was to create a structure that would manage the tensions and the differences of opinion inside the governance structure. But I think all in all, it does display to us the challenges that we face by having hung municipality. And from that point of view, as the African National Congress, we appeal to our people, the voters, to give as much support to the African National Congress, so that we do not have to have hung municipalities where there is indeterminate authority, and therefore these kinds of disruptions. We think that when the hung municipality and the coalition governments are unable to cooperate, it does actually cast a raw deal to the communities who are waiting for service delivery. I think it's important for us to always understand that at the end of the day, it's no longer about the interest of individual parties. It's about the interest of all our people out there that we have to work together and promote service delivery in the interest of all the voters who would have brought us into governance. And from that point of view, therefore, we would hope that this is not going to be a trend that we're going to be finding in all other different municipalities. At this point, we want to just say to you, thank you very much for sharing with us on how we see this manifesto priority number 3, and we also want to indicate that we believe that things will be different with the African National Congress focusing very strongly on the issues of implementation of these programs, and also that we remain a force for change as the African National Congress. We have to continue to champion the unfinished business of transforming South Africa for the better. So with that, we really hope that our people will continue to welcome and receive positively the message from the African National Congress. Thank you very much.